Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're doing a combo video for my Vaalmonica deck that I showed off just the other day. So today we're going to start with the sort of bread and butter combo, and then I'm going to branch out into things you can do with cards that weren't in the deck before, either because they were good or I was playing them, but I just didn't include them, and they will be included, especially after Beatrice gets banned, or some interesting new tech cards that came up recently. So this is your bread and butter combo, and you might see some lines that are better than this. I won't say that you won't. And if you do, feel free to comment. I'm absolutely happy to hear if you guys see a line that's better than what I'm going to show you, and it always makes me learn a little bit more about the deck too. So we're going to start with Voice and Subtleties. Now, this could be like Voice and I believe Skelta. This could be Voice and like a Pendulum Scale. It can be anything. It's just, apart from this, you will need another discard usually. But let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with Voice. Voice effect, add a Pendulum. Doesn't matter which one, just that you add a Pendulum. We're going to Angelo effect here, pitch Subtleties. Scale both, and then Subtleties effect to add itself back to hand. We'll normal the Subtleties, grab a Skelta. We'll go and activate the Skelta, taking 5 to add Invitare, and we gain a counter on Demino here. We're going to activate the Invitare to add 1 Pendulum to hand, and put 1 in the face of extra. You want to always add Angelo to hand and put Demino in the face of extra, so let's do that here. We'll go ahead and Pendulum summon out the Demino and the Angelo. Here we're going to go Demino effect to copy the Skelta. We'll take 5 and gain another counter. And we're going to go ahead and add the Disharmonia to hand. We're going to activate Disharmonia. We're going to place a counter on the Angelo and then take 5 to add a card from our graveyard back to our hand. Here we get to add the Invitare. And then finally, we will go Angelo effect, gain 500 and banish the Disharmonia. To add a banish one back to hand, we'll add the Skelta back to hand. So this is good because we have the Invitare for during the next turn, or our opponent's turn. We both have follow-up, but we can also get a Vaalmonica named card onto the board in case we want to go into VAR. But regardless, we're going to go ahead and use Demino for Zebufera. We're going to link Zebufera off into Requiem. We're going to activate Requiem effect, tributing self for cost to summon out the Engraver. We're going to go ahead and link Angelo and Engraver for sequence. This might be a bit of an early sequence, but you'll see why here in a second. So we're going to go ahead and sequence. We're going to put back the Zebufera and the Requiem to summon the Lacrima, which is only just 2 Light Fiends. Lacrima effect, we're going to add the Engraver back to hand. We'll go ahead and use the Engraver to add Tract. Tract, add Lurie, ditch Lurie, and then Lurie effect is going to summon itself back out. And this is where the line can kind of differ. So we're going to go ahead and link the Lurie and the Subtleties off for a copy of IP Masquerena. Then we're going to activate Engraver, putting back the Lurie, and we summon itself out. Now this is where we can kind of get a little funky with it. So you have the Tract in graveyard, so you can't just tract these 3 away for the Desiree, and then you can sequence equip to the Desiree. That way you have the hot red negates. But kind of the usual best play is to go overlay these 2 for Beatrice, which this won't be around anymore, so you might overlay these for Wave Hiking Caesar, you might overlay them for Dragulus, Pilgrim Reaper even, I don't know. But this is kind of where the line kind of sort of ends, because there's a lot you can do. So if you are playing Beatrice, let's say for some reason it's not banned, or you're playing this in the next 3 days, you can Beatrice detach Engraver to send Angel of Blue Tears, and then you could link the Beatrice and the sequence off for SP. And then you get obviously Lacrima effect, put the Engraver back, or more than likely the sequence, put that back, and then you can Angel of Blue Tears to set D barrier. But if Beatrice is banned here, which it should be, hopefully, we're all praying for it, then you can go ahead and make Wave High King Caesar and just, leave the sequence on field as both fodder for IP and for Angelo effect to summon VAR if we want to set the Invitare. And then one of the last things that I like to do is if I have one more extender, right? Like, I don't have to just straight up end on the Beatrice, or I have another Light Fiend in graveyard. What I like to do is actually end on the Beatrice. So for example, one thing we could do if we had enough like Vaalmonica cards is put enough counters onto Angelo. That way we could actually link sequence into Duralame, which it's not great. I mean, I would rather I'd rather not leave a Duralame on field. Or if we had another body, we could link sequence and the Vaalmonica body into VAR. That way we have VAR just on field. It just needs a Vaalmonica card. But we do have to have 6 counters. Point is, if you have a way to get another Light Fiend in graveyard, I actually really do like ending on Beatrice. The reason is Beatrice can then dump the trap card you want during your turn for you to copy with Zebufera, which we make off of IP Masquerena. And that's probably what we do if Angel of Blue Tears isn't available to us, like we drew it or something. We just go ahead and Beatrice dump whatever trap we want. Alright, so that was this combo. Let's see what else we can do. Alright guys, so here's another combo. So this kind of shows like everything I wanted to show you, so that's kind of nice. So it shows you a new tech card, some text if you can only afford 1 engraver. This is one of the few decks that I think can get away with only having 1 engraver. So if you only can't afford 1 or you only have 1, this shows you a combo to make use of the 1. And then it also shows you the normal end board I was doing with Beatrice. So again, just starting off with voice and a monster, we're going to go ahead and add Seltrees. This time we had the Pendulum in hand. We'll go ahead and activate the Pendulum, ditch the Settltrees, add Settltrees back to hand by its own effect. Normal to Settltrees, add Skelta, Skelta add Invitare, taking 500 and then gaining a counter on Demino. Activating Invitare, adding Angelo to hand, and Demino to the face of extra. We'll go ahead and pen summon here. And we're just gonna do the exact same thing. Demino, copy Skelta, add Disharmonia. Activate Disharmonia, we'll place a counter on Angelo and gain the and take 500, so we gain the 3rd counter on Demino. Go ahead and add Invitare back to hand. Now Angelo effect, copy Disharmonia, gain 500 and add, we're supposed to add the Skelta back to hand. But yeah, so that's supposed to be Skelta, big deal. Here's a funny tech that you can do. So if you want to play around Bestials or Crow or really anything that vanishes from the graveyard, you can actually make Exiton here. And this is really important because when we link off the Exiton, the Demino actually does go to the graveyard. So that's both really nice because it gets you a 2nd Light Fiend in the graveyard, where if you did the line I showed you before where you go Zeb into Requiem here, you wouldn't get the 2nd Light Fiend. The only bad thing is now you've kind of lost access to this Demino, where before you would be able to pen it out next turn. But I'll show you why that is nice to have the extra Light Fiend. So we go for Requiem for Engraver, and now if you only have the 1 Engraver, what you'll do here is you'll go equip Requiem and then make Necroquip. Then you'll use the Engraver's effect. You will shuffle anything back, any Light Fiend to special it, and then we'll go ahead and overlay both of these for Constellar Ptolemy M7. So we can use its effect because it was Nat XE summoned. You can detach a material and target 1 monster on the field or the graveyard. Because of this then conjunction, it's sequential. So you detach as cost, and then you target the Engraver as cost to add back to hand. So then we Engraver effect, detach as, or send for track for Lurie. Lurie effect here gets to summon itself out. Then we'll go ahead and link Lurie and M7 for sequence. Sequence effect will shuffle back the Exiton and the Requiem. For Lacrima, Lacrima effect is going to summon out the Engraver, and here we get to overlay for Beatrice. So now what we'll do is we go ahead and we actually had link 1 here, my bad. We'll go ahead and leave these Seltrees on field in case we want to link with it next turn, but we'll just go ahead and link off these sequence for the Zebufera. Now, again, there we could have gone tracked for Desiree and then sequence equip the Desiree, and then we would be able to end in the same place because we just linked the Seltrees for the Zeb, but this allows us to actually end on the Beatrice. So here, Beatrice, we detach the Lacrima, we send Blue Tears, we get to go Lacrima effect, shuffle back a Light Fiend to deal 12, and then Angel of Blue Tears gets to banish 2 side trap cards. So this was supposed to be D Barrier, but I put D Prison in instead. So just imagine this is D Barrier. You can set that, or you can go after a Vaalmonica trap. Let's say you draw the D Barrier, or if you really want to, you could just go for an Imperm. But assuming that we do set the D Barrier, what you do on your opponent's turn is you'd go Beatrice, send the Followed Rhythm or the Chosen Melody, whichever you prefer, to the graveyard so that you can then copy it with Zebufera. And this might not look that imposing of a board, but remember, we searched a D Barrier, not a D Prison, a D Barrier, and we have a Spell Trap and Monster Bounce. So, or Spell Trap, Destruction, and Monster Bounce off of the Zebufera. We also have our opponent's cards losing 300 or 3 soon to be 400 attack for each counter on Demino, or 100 total, but 3 to 4 depending on how many counters. And then also because we put 2 counters on Angelo, when we gain 5 to pop a Spell Trap, voice triggers to Snatch Steal. So that's another thing. And again, we can set Invitare here if we want to get like another body on field. But more often what we're going to do is just after we use Zeb, when they declare an attack, we'll Angelo link these 2 into VAR. So that is kind of the cool combo. Now there are some interesting things. Now, again, let's talk about it. Beatrice is not going to be around for a while. So I think you just make either Wave High King if that survives. Otherwise, you could make Dragulus is a pretty decent card. It's a Book of Moon. You can make Lars. Evils are Lars. This is just the best thing you can do with this deck. And I think it's kind of fun. But let's show off what it does. Like, I don't want to say without the Fiendsmith, because the Fiendsmith is a big part. As you saw, we did like a little bit of comboing with the Vaalmonica cards, and then we just Fiendsmith stuff. But I guess we'll show you what you do if you don't want to play a Fiendsmith build. Alrighty, so lastly, I wanted to show you guys just sort of a test hand, so you can see what you can do with more cards in hand, but also to show you what the deck ends on if you don't want to play Fiendsmith. I do think this is a Fiendsmith deck 100% of the time, but let's say you can't afford it, or you don't like the Fiendsmith cards, or, you know, more than just Beatrice gets banned. Like, you know, Beatrice gets banned, Lurie gets banned, maybe even Moon of the Closed Heaven gets banned, and Fiendsmith is just not nearly as good as it was. Here's what you can do with the deck pure. So we'll go ahead and activate the Terraforming we have for the Invitare. Hopefully we don't get trolled. As you might tell, this deck does kind of lose hard to troll, especially if we have to Terraforming. We grab Settle Trees. We go ahead and pitch Settle Trees for Angelo, and then Demino, Settle Trees to add back. When we normal summon, since we already have the Skelta, we'll just go ahead and grab the trap to hand. Followed Rhythm is pretty much the best trap. Like I said, there are times where I want to play 2 of this instead of 1 followed, 1 chosen, but I think there is some niche cases, especially with Beatrice Legal, where dumping the chosen to the graveyard and then copying the effect with Zeb, that way you can negate something, might be pivotal. But either way, we'll go ahead and activate the Skelta. We'll take 5 and gain a counter on Demino to add Invitare. You saw this before. Activate Invitare effect to grab Angelo to hand and Demino to the face of extra deck. And the problem with this deck mainly is actually, as you can see, you can run out of scales. We've already gone through 2 of our 2 copies of each of our scales. So this is why I don't think you can run less than a playset of each, and I really wish we had at least 1 more scale. But we'll go ahead and activate Angelo here after we Pendulum Summon it to copy Skelta. We'll take 500 to add Disharmonia and get a counter. We'll go ahead and activate Disharmonia. We gotta gain that counter. We're going to place a counter on Angelo and then take 500 to add the Invitare back. We'll go ahead and Angelo to copy Disharmonia. We'll gain 500 to add the Skelta back. So here we should be at 2 counters on the Angelo and 3 on the Demino. Again, on the next turn when we copy Followed Rhythm or just activate it hard, this will go up to 3 counters and we can steal something with the field spell. So now we'll link Demino into the Zebufera, and we'll link the Angelo and the Settle Trees into an IP Masquerena. We will set 3 cards, including the hand trap that we drew, the Invitare, and the Followed Rhythm, and pass the turn. Now, why is this pretty strong if you look at it? It's kind of unassuming, but so we have we can activate Followed Rhythm twice because we can activate it on the field the first time, and then we can copy its effect with Zabufera to activate it again. So again, and this is kind of weird. So it says you can only activate one Vaalmonica Followed Rhythm per turn. The thing is Zabufera is not Vaalmonica Followed Rhythm. It just copies the effect. It doesn't copy the restriction. And even if it is, you're not activating the name of the card twice the turn. You're activating the effect. So you get to gain 500 twice, and then you get to take 500 to bounce a card back to hand. I think Konami did a great job of remembering to put the gain first. That way you can't kill yourself on accident. Especially if you want to activate both effects, but you have 2 of that, so that's essentially 4 disruptions, but we'll count it as 2 with Zeb and Followed Rhythm. You have IP. IP can go into, we don't have it, but Duralame, and Duralame can pop a bunch of cards. I think it can pop 5, if I remember right. Yeah, so assuming you don't activate Followed Rhythm first and then copy it, you would be at 5. Otherwise, you'd be at 7 or 9. So you can IP link into Duralame and Duralame to nuke the entire field. You have Invitare, which can summon a Vaalmonica from your deck, which is nice because let's say for example, right, your Zabufera gets, like, let's say you get Lightning Storms from monsters. They clear your IP, they clear your Zabufera. You can Invitare to summon a card, and then during the damage step, or during the battle phase, I should say, you can Angelo to quick link into the Duralame, and then you can nuke the field again. But otherwise, let's say you've used IP to go into Duralame, and you want to keep like the Zabufera on your field for the next turn, but you also want to summon like Var, then you can Angelo link into Var off of the Invitare monster. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and we'll call that 5, and then 6. Those are the 2 hand traps we drew, but just like before, if they were just Fiendsmith cards, it'd be the same amount. Or if it was more extenders, we might have gotten to more interruptions like an SP as well as an IP. But yeah, so I think this deck is a decent mid-range deck. I wish it was cheaper, that way you could justify playing it on a budget, but $10 for Skeltas, $8 for Voices, it's not too budget. It's especially not super budget when you include the Fiendsmith engine. So to all of my budget players, I'm sorry. I know where you were at. I was there once, but yeah, so this is Vaalmonica. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and if you really enjoyed, make sure to subscribe. That's all for me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.